The future of AI is more Baconator than Terminator.
Do you think that this is going to become the next component of like SOC 2 compliance, security best practices?
Large software vendors like Microsoft and others are looking to use this technology to do what's called attestation of their software packages.
Hello, welcome to the Sayva Spotlight, a client-focused podcast where we interview founders and CEOs of some of our most exciting businesses to learn about their industries, value props, and what differentiates them from the competition. My name is Johnny Kasian, and I'm the host of the Sayva Spotlight. I'm a certified public accountant and the vice president of strategic operations for Sayva Solutions. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Aaron Fulkerson. Aaron is the CEO of Opaque Systems, a company specializing in privacy-enhancing technologies for data and artificial intelligence. He joined Opaque in October 2023, bringing extensive experience in enterprise and open source software. Prior to this role, Aaron served as the VP and General Manager at ServiceNow, where he launched ServiceNow Impact, an AI-enabled value acceleration platform for customers. Opaque Systems, founded by researchers from UC Berkeley's RISE Lab, focuses on developing confidential AI platforms that enable organizations to run AI workloads on encrypted data. The company's solutions allow enterprises to perform analytics and machine learning on sensitive data without compromising privacy or security. In June 2024, Opaque unveiled the first platform for running AI workloads on encrypted data, supporting languages and frameworks such as Python and Spark. Visit opaque.com for more details. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us today on the Sayva Spotlight.
Thanks so much for the intro, John. Let me make one minor correction, which is a common mistake. Opaque.co for the website.
Oh, yes, opaque.co. Man, I need to update my copy.
That's all right. Hey, the fact that we had to restate it probably only increases the probability of people going and visiting it.
That's it. OPAQUE.co. All right, opaque.co.
Yep.
All right, so thanks, Aaron. So as discussed, you were the VP at ServiceNow. You launched an AI-enabled platform for customers. How did this experience and your prior career experiences lead to you becoming the CEO at Opaque?
Great question. So I saw significant problems in high tech, including in my own business unit that I was the founder of, in being able to access customers' data to train AI personalization. So when we launched Impact, think about Impact as kind of like if your Apple Care analyzed all of the products that you use from Apple and took data from your telemetry patterns from telemetry on devices that you use and applications that you use from Apple, and then makes recommendations to you to get more value out of them. That's basically what Impact was. And one of the problems I faced with customers of ServiceNow in regulated markets was I couldn't access their data. They wouldn't allow me to access the data. And then a lot of our strategic customers disallowed us from accessing the data, which means that a lot of the AI personalization, they couldn't get the benefit up from. So already I was like, well, gosh, there has to be some way I can unlock that private data in a way that the customer would feel comfortable with me accessing it. And then I found Opaque. They reached out to me about potentially joining the company as the CEO. I had no intention of leaving ServiceNow. I had helped to create one business unit called Customer Workflows. It was already there. I just helped them accelerate it to being the fastest growing business unit at the company. And then I launched another business unit that became the fastest growing business unit in the history of the company with Impact. So I had no interest in leaving. But when this group of world-renowned researchers who were the founders approached me about joining as their CEO and helping them figure out the go-to-market for the product, it solved such a huge, profoundly challenging problem that I knew it was of interest. I'll add on, I fear I'm like talking too much, John, so forgive me, but here's the other thing that I saw that was really important to me. In a time when trust has been completely eroded across our country and globally, where people don't know what they can trust, it was of particular interest to me for that as well. And specifically what I mean is high-tech companies have, over the last 2-3 decades, mined, refined, and in a way weaponized our personal data to sell us things or to capture our attention. And it struck me that with Opaque, being able to control your data is something that's just too important of an opportunity to pass up.
Sure. So, you found a great purpose, in making that move over. So you mentioned security. Let's talk about, Opaque's value prop, more specifically and where it fits in the B2B AI security landscape. So if I'm an organization, how am I going to use Opaque's platform? And, what type of organizations, are you targeting?
Great question. So our current focus is on high tech and financial services, but you can imagine that this is applicable for all industries, and I'll explain why. The benefit to an enterprise or a large organization is oftentimes they're unable to move their AI products into production out of the pilot phase. And the reason why is not related to complications with the technologies, it's related to complications with the data. The most valuable data at an organization is the most sensitive. Like by it's a truism, right? That data could be customer data, partner data. It could be proprietary information about how they operate their business. So if you're going to use that data in an AI workload, you have to be absolutely certain the data isn't going to leak out somewhere. And it's easier than ever for data to leak out with AI, specifically with large language models or generative AI. The way that these models are querying data and able to make sense of data is totally new and unique. And you have to make certain that somebody who's querying a large language model that's calling against a huge corpus of enterprise data doesn't inadvertently get access to sensitive financial data or sensitive customer data or sensitive HR data. So mostly what our customers buy us for, and these are companies like ServiceNow, my former employee, is a customer, or Encore Capital, the world's largest debt servicer. They buy and service debt. Their partners are all of the major credit card issuers. The European Union, who uses us to identify malware and cyber threat like ransomware malware across the European Union. What we allow them to do is to move those AI products into production by each data owner holds the encryption key on their data. And also you can deploy encryption on the models because oftentimes the models are very sensitive and proprietary, but they're able to get the benefit of the data being processed while encrypted with sometimes even a model that's been encrypted. So each party can protect the data or protect the model, and Opaque issues an audit trail with a cryptographic signature provided by the GPU or CPU manufacturer that allows them to prove that their data has been kept private, that they've retained ownership or sovereignty of the data.
So is you mentioned the audit part of that. Is that audit trail done with like a blockchain technology, or how exactly does that work?
No, it's not necessary to use a blockchain technology in this scenario. What happens is as the data gets connected to Opaque, the software stack that can run wherever you want, it could be in the cloud, we can host it, but most of our customers host it themselves. What happens is rules are set up before the data is processed, and each of the data owners, as I mentioned, holds an encryption key. At the time of processing, Opaque's generating an audit log, and then it produces a signature cryptographically from the hardware. So there's a hardware root of trust that validates and proves. So it's verifiable that that audit log is accurate and nobody could have done something inappropriate that violated the policy. So really what it does is it gives the user the ability to get their AI workloads into production on sensitive data because that audit log that's verifiable gives them what people call data provenance or data lineage. So they can track back everything that's happened and verify that they didn't leak data anywhere.
Understood. So do you think that this is gonna, almost become the next component of like SOC 2 compliance, or, just general like data security best practices? Is that what you're envisioning?
Absolutely. And it's actually bigger than that. So we have a podcast and a newsletter we do called AI Confidential. And AI Confidential puts out a lot of information around industry trends related to AI privacy, AI and data privacy, security, sovereignty. But one of the other benefits that I have from us doing that is I get to talk with industry world leaders. So the CTO of Azure, CTO of AMD, CTO of Google, and they look at this technology. So Opaque builds on what's called confidential computing. It's hardware that's commercially available from all the chip manufacturers. They're looking at it from not just a data and AI standpoint, but from an end-to-end software and hardware lifecycle. And here's what I mean. For every software package that people are deploying, every application, you could use the same kind of cryptographic signature to verify that this software build was built and certified by, let's say, Microsoft. Or I'll give you a better example, SolarWinds. So if you are familiar with SolarWinds, there was an infamous hack where a bad actor managed to get access to their code repository, inject a backdoor in the code that was then injected in as part of an update across all of their customers, which is a huge customer base software. And there was an infamous hack that occurred. So in the same way that Opaque's doing this around AI and data workloads, large software vendors like Microsoft and others are looking to use this technology to do what's called attestation of their software packages. So things like SolarWinds could never happen. And with that, you can go downstream from software into hardware design specification, which obviously, you guessed it, is done in software. And you could do attestation on hardware. So for example, let's say AMD wants to manufacture in China, but is uncomfortable doing so because they aren't sure if China is going to put a backdoor exploit into the chip that they manufactured there. Using the same technology and this concept of attestation, you could verify that no backdoor was put into your chip that deviates from the original design. So this, does it have an effect on SOC 2 or these other? I believe so. And I think that it even goes much bigger because it's going to have a sweeping change to how we secure our software and hardware lifecycle. Now,
Yeah, it seems like
obviously,
you're
we're focused on just data and AI, but it's much bigger than that. Sorry for interrupting you, John.
yeah. I mean, it just seems like you'll be able to address so many things at their root causes rather than, let's check them after the fact. So do you see right now, are you utilizing all two or three of these value props, or are you going to focus on one and then move into, like you said, the attestation, or do you have all of these in motion currently?
Now, for us, Opaque's focused, like we're a small company. We are really laser focused on, hey, how do we help first and foremost high tech and financial services firms benefit from the power of AI by being able to attest that their models are not malicious, that it's actually produced by who said produced the logic or models, and also that their data isn't violated. And I'll give you a real world example out of high tech and financial services. Let's take a record label. And this is a famous case that's going on right now. There's a very prominent, well-known record label. Just Google it, you'll find who they are, who's suing all of their distribution partners. So if I'm a record label, I produce a song, maybe it's a Taylor Swift song, and I put it out on my distribution partners, Spotify, Apple Music, Meta, and then consumers engage with that product. And there's all this metadata around the consumption of that product, that song. Now, that metadata determines everything from Aaron likes Sturgill Simpson and Chris Stapleton. So it knows, oh, it's minor keys or beats per minute, and here's his social graph, and here's what they like. So those distribution partners collect that data to drive recommendations that increase the consumption of that product. Well, who owns that data? In this world that this record label finds itself in, they think they own it, but really all of their distribution partners have the data. Well, if I'm an artist and I want to get my product distributed, why would I go to the record label and give them 20 to 50% of my revenue? I'll cut a deal directly with Spotify, Apple, Meta, and they'll do better distribution anyway and promotion. They know how to promote my product far better than anybody else because they have the data. So what I just gave you an example here is this business, the record label, is obsolete. That box has been opened. It cannot be put back into the box. That company is doing $22 billion a year. And over the next 5 years, their entire business model is just going to be suing people. So this isn't unique to music industry. Every single industry that's at enterprise scale, if you don't control the data, then your competitor who does, or your distribution or supply chain partner who does, will control you. Whoever controls the data controls the industry. So how is this relevant to Opaque? Using a technology like Opaque, what could have happened is that record label says, hey, we own the data. Any data related to our product gets written into an Opaque data storage. You can still build your personalized experience from that data in the Opaque space, but you can't see the underlying data. So that would have been a completely different scenario. This record label would be the dominant player thriving, and they could monetize that data across many different channels for that artist to be even more successful. But that's not what happened. Now, think about any industry, car manufacturing, perfect example there. If the car manufacturer doesn't control the data through the whole supply chain and somebody else does, they can launch a rival car manufacturer that delivers an even better product that's even more tailored to the consumer's demands. So that's why this is just so critically important. And what Opaque's going to focus on today, again, like, yes, it's high tech and financial services today because we have experience there, but we already have customers in government like the European Union and some other sectors too, like auto manufacturing.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you see some industries being proactive about this, realizing like your record industry example is great, you know? Do you see that industry actually changing, or do you think they're just going to continue to chase their tail till they disappear?
Well, I think once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in, you
Yeah.
know, and it's going to be a wild next 5 years as you see industries disrupted by whomever in that ecosystem was able to collect the data, because they're going to disrupt the entire industry segment. And it's going to happen in every single industry. And it's going to happen real quick.
Absolutely. Well, you know, this is obviously a great demonstration on, why data security is so important, right? Because it can just have these unintended consequences down the road. Like some of these industries that have been around forever now are going to be disrupted because they didn't understand the impact of their data authenticity.
Yeah, I mean,
So
take your industry, for example.
yeah.
Let's say that one of the software vendors that you use to service your clients was able to begin collecting data on your clients. Well, they could launch a far more competitive service offering to compete with Sayva. And it would be more competitive because they'd know how best to package it. And they would also know how best to deliver it at a low cost because they can drive a
Yeah.
lot more automation through AI.
Yeah, and we're seeing that now from a lending standpoint. So, banks, right? Traditionally, that's where you go and get your loans. Well, now if you're a company, let's say you're doing e-com and you're selling goods on a Shopify platform, now you can lend from Shopify because why? They have all the data and they can underwrite you in 2 minutes instead of 2 weeks. So we're already definitely seeing some of that.
Oh man, I love Shopify, and I am very long on Shopify. Their stock price has taken a beating since post-pandemic, but I am a shareholder. I'm a huge fan for this reason. They have the data on all of these brick and mortar businesses and online e-commerce businesses. They understand inventorying. They are a distributor where Amazon is a walled garden marketplace, centralized. Shopify's been able to do the long tail, pulling federated businesses, pulling data from across all of them. That's going to be a powerhouse company. Also, Square, or I think it's Block now. I'm super long on Block also.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of that, especially in the e-com space. They're going to just continue to grow their value props until they're basically doing everything for these companies. All right, so we talked about whoever owns the data, owns the industry. Let's get into the platform specifics. So let's say I'm a company we onboard Opaque. What does that look like from, an onboarding process, a specification process? If I'm a day-to-day user, what am I doing in there? Can you just give us, a broad picture of what that all looks like?
Sure. So it depends on the specific use case, but I'll give you kind of some generic ones. They tend to fall into two categories. One is analytics and machine learning. Two is generative AI pipelines. So let's say it's analytics and machine learning. We'll use the European Union as an example, who's a customer. Each EU member country connects their data sources to Opaque. They hold an encryption key on their data set, and the data still exists in their existing silo. Then what happens is they design an AI job. That could be Spark, it could be PyTorch, they could bring their own machine learning model, and it's going to analyze the data while encrypted, which sounds impossible. I'll explain that in a second. They design the job, and then what happens is they'll simulate the job to make sure that the output doesn't leak any private citizen data. The way that the simulation works inside of Opaque is we use synthetic data based on the data connection schema that allows them to generate synthetic or fake data. So once they see once they iterate and come to a job that they like the output of, they can all approve the job and then run it on the actual data, but it's still encrypted. They can't see each other's data. And the magic that happens here is in the silicon of the GPU or CPU in these specialized encrypted caches called hardware enclaves. I won't go into the details, but suffice to say what happens is each user's data and the algorithm that's being used to process the data, if they wish, can also be encrypted, gets processed, decrypted inside the silicon where nobody can see it. It's encrypted in memory. The operating system, the cloud provider, Opaque, nobody can see the actual data when it's decrypted and being processed. And with a cryptographic signature that's produced by the CPU or GPU, you can prove nobody's seen the data. So the only way somebody could actually access the data would be to physically attack the microchip, which would destroy the data when it's decrypted inside the CPU or GPU. So kind of nerdy stuff, but I'm kind of glossing over a lot of the details just to try to keep it high level. But suffice to say, this is technology that was built by some of the foremost inventors in AI at UC Berkeley, the same people who invented Apache Spark, who became Databricks, the same founding team. Also Ray, which became Anyscale, created Opaque. So from an end user perspective, typically the end user who would actually interact with the software is either a data scientist, a data engineer, or a software engineer. As an end user, you would just interact with a chat GPT prompt provided by your company, and then Opaque would provide a confidential pipeline doing what's called RAG on the data to prepare it for passing to chat GPT and then clean it up coming back. So as like a normal person, as a normie, you probably would never see Opaque.
Wouldn't even
You
know.
would just know
Yeah.
that your data is secure.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, you kind of touched on it, but my next question was going to be, how does Opaque protect its data? Because obviously if you're managing all of this and your job is to protect it for your customers, and I think you kind of got into how you do that. But could you maybe give us a high level, understanding of that? What data security, things you've implemented to make sure that your customers, can feel confident in the product?
Well, I think all of the usual SOC compliance that we've done, and also just vendor sourcing, making sure that they're compliant with privacy regulations like Sayva is, for example. That's the critical stuff that we do. Obviously, if it's data that is our customers' downstream data, we can't see that. Like it's impossible for us to see. Even in the event that we host the software, which most of our customers deploy our software in their virtual private cloud on Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, wherever. So we would never even have access to it because it's in their cloud. But even in the rare instances we are hosting our customers' data, it's encrypted. They hold the encryption key locally. We can't see it. And then beyond that, like, our general, general administrative operations is what you'd expect from a SOC 2 compliant company like we are.
Yeah, just the way it's all decentralized seems just it seems like a brilliant design.
Well, I can't take credit for it. The founding team, one of them received the Grace Hopper Award from ACM, which is a sister award to the Turing Award for her research on what became Opaque. So she is world renowned. One of the other founders is Ion Stoica, who's the original CEO and remains the chairman of the board of Databricks. He's the creator of Apache Spark, world-renowned distributed systems AI researcher at UC Berkeley. They're some of the most renowned people on the planet around AI and security.
Yeah, it's brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant. All right, so let's talk about what differentiates Opaque from the competition. So, AI is continuing to be mainstreamed. If you're not using it, you're falling behind, which means there's going to be a growing AI security sector. So what are you doing differently? Is there direct competition? Is there people trying to do something similar? Is it adjacent? What does this landscape look like?
So it's pretty immature right now. The closest vendors that do similar things to Opaque are kind of down stack. And here's what I mean. You have the hardware manufacturers, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, ARM, that manufacture the requisite chips for confidential computing. Up from that, you have the cloud service providers. These are Google, Azure, AWS. Then above them, there are some vendors that have built multi-cloud confidential computing software for infrastructure. They've modified Kubernetes so you can run containerized confidential computing. What Opaque does is a level above that. We make it so that a software developer or data scientist, data engineer has a Jupyter-like notebook interface where they can write Python, Spark, build machine learning, train machine learning, fine-tune models, all from within a developer environment that they're very familiar with. We also have a no-code experience for a business analyst, and then APIs for software engineers to integrate Opaque into their software stack and data pipelines. The point I'm making is we're the only vendor today that has a business platform for business analysts, software engineers, data scientists, data engineers. All of the other vendors in market today would require low-level platform engineers writing code just to get to where we are. That's not going to last. There's going to be a proliferation of vendors who will start coming out with similar features. And some of the large data and AI players will undoubtedly develop confidential capabilities into their current products. We happen to have some of the most skilled and experienced developers and engineers in this category in the market today, but that's not a long-term defensible barrier. So what we're really focused on is working with our customers to understand what their needs and demands are for generating value from confidential AI and always building innovation to serve their very specific needs. We happen to have an early to market advantage currently because our founders did the seminal research that made a lot of this software possible. But we have to maintain a rapid pace of innovation by collaborating with our customers to stay differentiated. And what does that look like in 1 year, 2 years? I can't tell you past 12 months. The world with AI is moving so rapidly. It's like week to week to week, things are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like every time I log into ChatGPT, there's a new update to the model. So it just keeps evolving. All right, let's shift to some personal questions. I think we covered a lot of the AI security. So, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And how did your education end up shaping your career path?
I'll make it a quick story, or I'll try to. I grew up in Morgan Hill in Northern California. Back then, Morgan Hill was a little farm town. I grew up on a farm with cows and goats and ducks and chickens. I was on the north side in the back then it was all fields and orchards. I happened to have a San Jose phone number though. And what that meant was I can dial into bulletin board services. This was before the internet, and I can get online before there was an online. So that simple fact of me not having to pay long distance to dial into bulletin board services, pre-internet, probably determined my career more than anything else, that random fact. But I didn't immediately go into software. I spent my teens and 20s, early 20s, up until I was 25, working as a cook and backpacking. So I lived in the Florida Keys, I lived in Minnesota, I lived all over. And what attracted me back to software was I wanted to do things that would help people communicate more effectively. So I decided I would pursue a career in applied math, computer science. I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I think it's number 11 in computer science ranking now. At the time, it was like number 8. It was top 10 computer science applied math program on the planet. Very prestigious, world-renowned founder of the program. So I went to school there, and during my time there, I also started several nonprofits in North Carolina that helped with bridging the digital divide in at-risk communities, some of which are still in operation today and have, last I heard, 12 community centers serving at-risk underserved communities in Durham, North Carolina. But after I graduated, I got recruited into Microsoft. I did a short stint doing distributed systems research, really, really nerdy stuff with people who had Turing Awards at Microsoft, 14-person research team. I did not last long there because all we did was write patents, and I wanted to ship product. I wanted to actually do something that affected the market and helped people, not just build a patent portfolio for Microsoft. So I launched an open source project with a dear friend of mine from Microsoft, still a great friend to this day. And that open source project became one of the top 5 most popular open source projects on the planet. It was used for collaboration. And the original idea was around researchers being able to collaborate on their research. And I saw it as a way to disrupt Elsevier, which what will happen with Elsevier is it's a academic publishing company. They have a bunch of different publishing arms, but I wanted academics to be able to publish their research and go through a peer review process and consume it freely without paying exorbitant fees. That took off. A lot of companies used it as internal business collaboration. We sold that business to a call center software company. And to this day, that open source project is used by a variety of different open textbook, including projects, including one called LibreText, which serves 1 billion people a year from elementary school to college curriculum. So it's an open textbook that's free for anybody. It actually started off as the world's most popular chemistry textbook for high school and college chemistry, all the way through graduate degrees. And then it expanded into all of the different subjects. And yeah, to this day, MindTouch, that open source project, that's one of them. It's probably the most popular one. It achieved our original vision of freeing knowledge. Like that was, we had t-shirts printed up, we're like free knowledge. And it was all about freeing knowledge. So yeah, it achieved the vision of making it easier for people to collaborate and share knowledge. And we built a tidy little business and sold it to a contact center and made a little bit of money too. And then after that, went to ServiceNow, and here I am today.
That's a great story. Since you've been in software for quite a bit, created the open source project. Did you see AI kind of going in this direction? What was primitive, maybe for people that aren't knee deep in tech, what was primitive AI, and how did we get from here to there?
So all of the technology that is currently dazzling people like ChatGPT really isn't new. What's new is how accessible it is and how easy it is for the average user to get benefit from it. So anytime you see a super cycle, like, you know, um, mainframe, personal computing, the internet, mobile, to where we are now with what's going on with AI, it's always the case that there's a catalyst moment, a product that comes to market that sparks the imagination of the world. With the internet, it was Netscape. And Netscape was a catalyst coinciding with a time when the technology became really accessible and easy to get access. And it sparked an entire technology supercycle that changed the world. Now, what we're seeing with AI, that catalyst was, of course, ChatGPT, horribly named product. Sam Altman would agree. That was the catalyst that sparked the world's imagination. And make no mistake about it, this is the most significant technology supercycle in human history, far bigger than even the internet. So to your original question, like, when did I see it? Or I've been a follower of Ray Kurzweil, who's talked about the technology singularity, where there's an exponential pace or acceleration in the pace of innovation. And this point of singularity is the moment in which there's an artificial intelligence that is more capable than humans. So I was skeptical of his timelines, but apparently I believed in the concept, but I was skeptical of the timelines because it seemed so near. I'm less skeptical now, having seen ChatGPT. But to say that, oh yeah, I saw this coming, anybody who tells you that is full of shit. I mean, even the people at OpenAI, I think, are pretty surprised by how much innovation they've managed to ship in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's truly incredible. I mean, even just ChatGPT, it can hack just things that happen in your everyday life. I've transformed my grocery shopping and meal planning experience by making custom GPTs. It's crazy how much we use it now.
Well, I mean, here's the scary part of this is it also has been demonstrated to be able to hack into external systems. So it can write and deploy code that can, for example, hack into our electric grid. The potential risk of ChatGPT cannot be overstated. And it's why it's so important that we have researchers like one of our founders, Reluka Edapapa, who are investing in AGI security research, because we're going to have AI to protect us from AI. That's the world that we now live in. And I'm not an AI pessimist. I don't think that I had this conversation with the CTO of Google Cloud recently, and he was telling the story of how the first reference deployment of Vertex, their AI engine that they offer on GCP, was at Wendy's. And it was used to take orders and transcribe orders in like natural language. People pull up, they speak to the AI, and it would transcribe the orders, which is a really complicated problem. Like people pulling up asking for Big Macs. It happens all the time, right, at Wendy's.
Yeah.
So he said, I said, so I asked him, I said, you're pretty optimistic. And he told the story about Wendy's, and he's like, this became like a reference implementation that's now been like replicated across a whole bunch of different industries and call centers and everything. And he's like, I think the future of AI is more Baconator than Terminator, right? And I'm like, so you're not of the mind that this Wendy's AI drive-through is going to become sentient and all of a sudden turn humans into Baconators, right? And he doesn't, and I don't think so either. But I am very concerned about malicious actors doing bad things with AI, like hacking electric grids or designing biochemical weapons or biological weapons. That's a very real risk.
Sure. Yeah, it's just making it allows bad actors to do research and a lot easier, Absolutely. Well, again, it's going to create that big security space though that you guys, find yourself in. So there's definitely going to be, opportunity there. So since joining Opaque as CEO, how have you balanced your family life and work life? I like to ask CEOs this because I just know that a lot comes with it. There's just a lot of external pressures. There's, a shortage of time and, you still have to balance the things at home. So what's that been like?
Well, I've had this observation. I had this observation pretty early on at Opaque, which is being a hired CEO is a lot easier than being a founder CEO. It's easier to find balance. Don't get me wrong, I work my ass off and I work long hours, but I do it because I love to do it. Like I love my work. If I didn't at this point in my life, I just wouldn't do it. But one, it's for anybody listening who's a founder CEO. I've been there and I can appreciate how lonely that is. And it's much easier being a professional CEO. And then as far as like, how do I balance? I think it's now that I'm older than I was when I was a founder CEO, forgetting the fact that there's a totally different dynamic between founder and hired CEO. Now that I'm older, I realize that a lot of the things that I thought were important when I was younger, and I would spend just tremendous amounts of my time focusing on, they don't matter. Like probably 50% of the stuff I did when I was a first-time CEO that I thought was important just doesn't matter. But you see everybody else online doing it, and you think it's important to do too, and it's just not. And you could probably figure out what those things are. So I think that's one key thing is as you get older and smarter about it, you just realize that some of the things that you thought were important aren't, and that frees up a lot of your time. And then I'll give you the standard commentary, which is, I get up early in the morning so I have time to focus, and I exercise every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Go in there with clarity. So when you're not running the company, not with your family, what are you doing? Hobbies?
I used to do a lot of stuff outdoors and ride motorcycles, but my wife of 1 year, I don't know, I guess I've settled down more, and we like to read books. So we probably do that more.
A little different than riding motorcycles.
Well, we still do a lot of outdoor stuff. She actually
Yeah.
just chimed in off camera. She's about to walk the dog. We still do hikes and whatnot, but they're not as extreme as what I used to do. So yeah, like I don't know, I'm a little older now. I still ride motorcycles, not as crazy and as long as I used to. I'm not like climbing waterfalls in my Jeep like I used to. It's a little mellower these days.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, you're in California. It's nice out every day, so you have plenty of opportunity to do all of those things. Well, Aaron, this has been fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to chat today. So, one final question. We're almost at the end of 2024. What can we expect of Opaque in 2025? What are we looking at?
Well, we're going to have a lot of great customer announcements that we'll be making throughout 2025, where we're solving really gnarly problems with data and AI that they like. These are like entirely new lines of business that companies couldn't even dream of before because they couldn't use the data. It was just too sensitive. So I'm really excited about all the customer announcements that we'll be able to make throughout 2025.
That's really fantastic. Well, we appreciate your time. This has been great chatting with you, and we look forward to seeing what Opaque has in store coming up.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.